Indivisible and the ACLU have announced that the next National Day of Action will be October 18th. We are already hard at work with other groups planning for No Kings 2 is what it's being dubbed so far. I like the continuity. But we'll have lots more information for you in the future. But right now, we're just getting started. We would love to hear from you later tonight about new ideas that you have to make the next No Kings even better. Think about something so new and creative that the news can't help but cover it. If you don't live in Colorado, we'd love to hear about your favorite thing about a protest you've been to in your city. But first, Morgan, just let me know about the tragic school shooting in Evergreen. And I have not even had a chance to read about it. So I'm going to let Morgan say a few words about that first.
Thank you, Tiffany. For those of you who don't know, 3 students were shot at Evergreen High School today. Evergreen is about 20 to 30 minutes west of Denver, up in the mountains. It is obviously a tragic incident, and I don't want to get too deeply into the issue of guns, but the fact that this has become routine and normalized and not outrageous every time it happens bothers me to a great degree. And it's something that is not going to be fixed in exactly the same way that many of the other problems that we have are being exacerbated instead of solved. And I think when things come to pass is the time to consider it. But for the time being, I would like to observe a moment of silence for the students who are injured and possibly killed. Currently, they know that 1 is not life-threatening injuries and 2 are in critical condition. So let's have a moment of silence. Thank you all, and now I'll send it back to Tiffany.
Thank you, Morgan. So tonight we are going to discuss how to find a local group to get involved in or to start your own group. So the first section on finding a group is also a great resource if you're looking for other groups to network with and grow your group's membership or plan events with. Much of the section on finding a group comes from an essay by Stacy, who is one of the members of the Civil Resistance Study Group. Here's a link to her essay and then a link to RSVP for the study group if you're interested. I'll cover a few ways to find local groups and how you can build relationships with other groups. And if you don't find a group that fits you, you can start your own. And we'll go over some tips on how to do that next. Indivisible has a link where you can search for indivisible groups near you. That link, I think, I'm not sure how well it's kept up to date in that I know when I was looking for an indivisible group, I had to contact several before I heard back from anyone. So I think some groups may just no longer be in existence. Or they may have been absorbed into other groups, or you might just take a few, sending out a few emails before you find one near you. Another way to find groups is to start by deciding if you'll use social media. If you haven't created an account with one of these platforms that we'll talk about yet, you can either Google or type a prompt into ChatGPT, like how to set up a Blue Sky profile. All of the instructions I'll give you tonight are for how to search for groups on the web-based version of these apps, but you should be able to find similar settings in the phone apps, or again, just ask the internet. So on Blue Sky, you can click on Discover at the top to see posts from recommended accounts based on the topics you selected when you created your account, or based on the accounts that you follow. But I found a neat thing that I didn't know about until recently, which is if you click on the hashtag at the top, you can discover new feeds, which are basically a new set of accounts to read posts from. So you click on the name of a person to check out the type of, or sorry, you click on the name of a feed to check out the type of post that it includes, and you can pin the feed to add it to your homepage at the top of with Discover and Following. On Facebook, Facebook is one of the best places to find large groups. It's great if you live in a rural area. You can search for terms like activism or activist and your city name or county, or any search terms you like. And then on the left-hand side, click on groups. And that's the easiest way. Usually, I believe you always have to join a group, and sometimes there are going to be some questions you have to answer, usually just to make sure you're not a bot, and that you're really a person that wants to join the group. And then on Threads and TikTok, which I didn't know how to search for groups, so I had to Google the instructions. You can search for keywords, and then follow accounts that have names that sound like groups, like Denver Activists. And then you can interact with them through the comments on the post. You can also click on the group name and look for contact info in their profile. And on Discord, which is something that many groups are using for messaging these days, on the desktop or in the app, look for the compass icon in the left sidebar, and that's Explore Public Servers. And then meetup.com is a cool website where you can search for events based on your location, and keywords. And step 2 in Stacy's article covers how to protect your privacy when you are searching online and signing up to contact groups. Now I'm going to put some suggestions. Some other ways where you can find groups are just to talk to your friends and family who are already doing some social justice work as well, but maybe in a different area. Internet search for your city plus an issue that you're passionate about. You can also talk to your neighbors, parents at the bus stop, anyone you feel comfortable approaching. And here are some groups that are suggestions of groups you could research other than Indivisible. And I'll put those in the chat. You can take a screenshot of that, and I'll also send it out in the email tomorrow. Oh, and one more is Working Families Party. So, Working Families Party is a really cool group that we had the opportunity to join. And I will tell you a little bit about that story here in just a minute. Indivisible also, oh, sorry, this is the Indivisible website to find groups near you. And the next step is to determine how active the groups are. You can check their social media as far as how often do they post, how many followers do they have, how many reactions. You can also check to see if their values align with yours. Are they doing local work that you're passionate about, and are they responsive to new inquiries? And the next step is take the opportunity to engage with the group or multiple groups. Or if you're in another group, this is how you start to build your coalition. Engage with these organizations. You can message them on social media. On their website, they might have a phone number or an email address you can call or email and ask how you can get involved. Sometimes you can join as a member on their website or sign up for a newsletter. And just do what feels right for you. But we're always here if you have questions. And if you don't find a group that's right for you and you're interested in starting your own group, here are some tips from Indivisible. You can find more detailed versions of this information through the link in the chat. And the first step is going to be to register as an Indivisible group. So the first step is to register your new group. Many groups include the location and Indivisible in their name. We're a little different because we actually didn't start out as an Indivisible group. Some of you may remember the We Are Worth Fighting For movement that sprung up after the November election. It was a coalition made up of Indivisible, Working Families Party, Public Citizen, and MoveOn.org. And so this coalition went on for about 3 months. And then suddenly, after basically what they were there to do was to encourage us all to start our own groups. I started this group on Zoom because I live in a tiny little mountain town, not that far from Evergreen, actually. Where it was going to take me 45 minutes to drive anywhere where people would want to gather in numbers big enough to make a group. And so I started one on Zoom. I adapted the script that they gave us for the first couple of meetings. And then at one point, Morgan's group joined together with this one. And so that's how we ended up as co-hosts. And what happened was in January, the coalition said, well, we are not going to be working together anymore. I think they had realized their initial goal of having us start groups. And I think there was probably some butting of heads about what the next steps were going to be. Sometimes that happens. But what they did was they said, you know, we encourage you to join one of these groups. And the two that really had like the smaller group, like grassroots structure were Indivisible and Working Families Party. And Working Families Party is a very cool group. I know their state organizer, and she's an amazing human. And they have their upsides. And the main reason we chose Indivisible was specifically that they offer some financial resources. So, for example, if you host a non-political event, such as like the barbecue that we hosted last summer, or a few months ago, you can get reimbursed for up to $1,000 per event, just to help you do things like that. They also can help you set up a fundraising account, and they'll pay all of the credit card processing fees for things like that. So that seemed to be the upside when we didn't really know a whole lot about either group. And that's why we went with Indivisible. But they also have a ton of resources that we found out later, as far as starting your own group, you know, and any question that you have, Indivisible probably has a website for it. So let's get into it. A lot of indivisible groups just have a single leader, the person who registered the group on Indivisible's website, who first put out the call to their neighbors to participate, and who led the first meeting. But a single leader can't effectively lead an indivisible group for long. You need a leadership team to be successful. So our leader that you know is Morgan, and Lindy. I'm not sure if you've made it here tonight, but most of you will recognize Lindy as well. She's our other group leader, and we've been holding it down since the beginning. But here are some ways to identify leaders. If you talk to people in your group and ask good questions and watch who does what, you'll be able to tell who the leaders are. All leaders have one thing in common: they have followers. So, how can you tell who the leaders in your group are? Start with 2 steps. Ask. Talk to the people in your group and ask them questions about who the leaders are. But you can't just ask, who are the leaders here? Try these questions. Who first got you involved in the group? Who invited you to the meeting? Who do you go to if there's a problem or if you have a question? Whose opinion do you trust about what we should do? And then observe, watch the dynamics in your group to see who is already leading, who volunteers for group activities, who is effective at getting other people involved in projects, who seems to persuade the group when they express an opinion. And here are some tips on structuring your group. And the first step is to identify your group's values and objectives. What brings you to this work? What kind of world are you working to build? Consider taking time with the people you're starting off with to talk about the shared values that will shape your work and goals. Step 2 is to create a structure for your group. The best structure for your group will depend on your size, your goals, and the kind of work you're trying to do. Below are some structure options that we recommend trying out if you're not sure where to start. A steering committee or leadership team of 3 to 5 people who are committed to giving significant time and energy to your group over time. Working groups that focus on different issue areas or needs of the group as a whole and meet regularly. Steering committee / leadership team members can lead working groups or foster leadership in other members. And the next step is to work towards an inclusive and transparent decision-making process. As your group gets started and grows, there will be many decisions to make. If your decision-making process is inclusive and transparent, that will help build trust and commitment over time. Some questions you can ask and best practices to consider to inform the ways your decision-making process unfolds are: what are our legislative priorities or other group objectives? When we hold a meeting, does someone take notes? How do we make notes accessible to people who weren't there? When we hold a meeting, when it's time to make a big decision, how do we determine who should be at the table to shape that decision? How do we gather input from those who won't be present, but may have a stake in the decision or be influenced by it? How can we make documents and resources available to anyone who needs them without overwhelming people with information? And who needs access to our membership contact information, and how can we make that info accessible yet also secure? What pathways do members have to give feedback at any point in time? And what are we doing to express that feedback is welcome and safe to give? The last step in this process is to register for every action. So every action is a volunteer management resource that Indivisible provides to local groups with an application process. Every action allows groups to collect their contacts, send mass emails, and access the Indivisible National Contact List in your district with the data sharing agreement and more. It's also known as VAN, so some of you might have used it with other groups. And once your group is up and running, it may be a useful way for managing and growing your membership. It's also good for tracking volunteers. Speaking of which, we are looking for a volunteer coordinator still. So if anyone out there is interested in doing it, once the volunteers that we have in the queue have been met with for about 15 minutes each on Zoom. After that, it shouldn't take more than probably 1 to 2 hours per week, unless you want to put more time into it. And meeting with the volunteers that we have who have already filled out the volunteer application could be done over months. It doesn't have to be done immediately. So really you can take your own time with it. So don't feel like you'd have to give over all your nights and weekends. But if that's something you're interested in doing, I will put my email in the chat. And then here is a detailed resource for recruiting people for your group, and also onboarding new members. Oops. And information on running your first meeting and hosting virtual events. And the next thing that I'm going to drop in the chat is something that Indivisible really emphasized in a group leader training that I attended. And we're working towards doing this with people in our group. So if you're interested in a one-on-one meeting, please email me at that address above, action@solidaritywarriors.org. But this is the art of the one-on-one. So it gives you the importance of meeting with group members who want to meet with you to really get to know people, especially because we're here on Zoom and we don't all get to see each other in person. I would love to get to know each and every one of you better. So if it's something you're interested in, please email me. There are also many other tools that are provided by Indivisible. Check out the section called Enhancing Your Work, Intro to Programs and Tools on the page that I just sent the link to. That's also where you can sign up for group leader emails. So now I would love to open it up to questions, and also would love to hear new and fresh ideas for what you guys would like to see at protests. What do you think would, really make people who it's their first protest say, wow, I really want to do this again, and people who it's their 200th protest say, wow, that was really something cool and new.
Tiffany, can I
Yeah.
expand a little bit on what you said? Because you talked a lot about
Yeah.
Indivisible, but I also work with groups outside Indivisible a lot. So I don't want you to get overwhelmed because all of the information she gave you, if you want to start an Indivisible group, is very useful. But if you want a group beyond Indivisible, there are a lot of things that you can do. For me, I found this group and got involved because I wanted to do specific things. I felt there were a lot of things that weren't being said that needed to be said out loud in front of a group of people. And there were things that weren't getting done that needed to get done. So when I went looking for a group, I was looking for somebody who's saying the things that I need to say and who's talking about the issues that are important to me. So for me, groups like the Democratic Party, the DSA, the Democratic Socialists, um, the Our Revolution, that are focused on getting people elected to office, isn't the space that I wanted to work in. So I went and I found a group that more closely matched what I was looking for. So the first thing I would say you'll want to do is, what are you interested in a group? And then figure out what groups, by doing some of these searches that Tiffany talked about, matches most closely to what you're looking for. But it doesn't need to be an exact match. You may not get along with everybody in a particular group, but I'm a little old fashioned in the sense that one of the best ways to meet other people in other groups is to go and meet them and be there and be part of it. And then you'll say, all right, well, I went to this meeting and it was okay, but it doesn't really click with me. But if you talk to the leaders and the other people in the group who are very likely like-minded people, somebody may have a suggestion, say, go try this group or go try that group. And then you can connect from there based on what you're interested in. And like Tiffany said, if there is something that you want to do that there isn't somebody out there doing it, that's when you can go and start your own group. And that's how I wound up starting a group in St. Louis when there wasn't really much resistance to the incumbent Republican. We started a group to change the dynamics in the district, right? Because everybody assumed there weren't any Democrats because it was badly gerrymandered. And we weren't working with a political candidate or campaign. And in fact, the Democratic Party had a primary with 5 people in it, and nobody ever scheduled a debate. So we went and we scheduled a debate, and we had people come and show up, and then we did informational exhibits. We did empty chair town halls in 2017, before it was even a thing. And then we went on, when she didn't show up, talking about the issues that were important to us. So my whole point here is, find where you fit and what you want to do, and then look for a group that does that. So if you're interested in mutual aid, there are lots of groups that do that. If immigration is front and center on your mind, find the groups that do that. And like I said, like mutual aid is a perfect example. You may find a homeless shelter that you can volunteer at, but realize that doesn't quite do what you need, then maybe volunteering at a phone bank or a food bank, and they can connect you with the ones that are closest to you or most in need. And that kind of old school connection from one to the other is a good way to do that. So I hope that kind of helps give an idea on things that you can do outside of Indivisible.
Thanks, Morgan.
Yes.
All right, we had a couple of recommendations for punk bands at our next protest. I'm all in for that.
Yeah, that's if you're we were actually talking about this. I still love the idea of putting a big Woodstock punk resistance festival together. And we found some resources so that we are going to move forward with it. It might be a year or more before we can do it. But if you want to know about the bands that I'm listening to now about this, certainly bands like the Dropkick Murphys, Rage Against the Machine. It's really hard to find a punk band that isn't resistance oriented. Many of them have been of the tear it all down, burn it to the ground, and start over from the very beginning. It's almost part of the ethos to it. I'm trying to think of, there was a new band that I just heard of, and I can't remember their name to save my life. But those are the two bands. What was it? Rage Against the Machine famously during, I think it was Trump's first run for president, and people started giving them a lot of grief for being political in their music and not allowing Donald Trump to use their music at any of his events. And they said, have you listened to our music? Do you know? I mean, what machine do you think we're raging against? So that is one of the ones I really like. I love the Dead Kennedys. I love the Ramones, the classics, the Sex Pistols, the Clash. I think the idea of resistance goes back in punk music to the 1970s. And even that, I think, goes a step further back. And a lot of it comes from the folk music that was resistance back into the 20s and 30s. That I would consider the Woody Guthries and the Pete Seegers and the labor people precursors to harnessing the discontent of the workers and the masses into what eventually became punk music when they had electric guitars and drums and combat boots. So I think all of it works together. Billy Bragg is another good person. I would say he borderlines on punk, but has been very, very vocal, particularly about things that have been happening in England when it comes to punk resistance music. So
Um, a lot of people are saying, folk music and protest singers of the 60s and 70s were very influential and powerful. We actually have a member here in Solidarity Warriors. I don't know if she's here tonight, but Jeanette is part of the No Enemies singers, and they were part of our last protest, the Stop the Deportation Machine protest, and it was amazing. It was definitely very powerful for the crowd to sing together, and I'm hoping that they will be with us for many protests to come.
Also, on the subject of music, shortly after Michael Brown in Ferguson, I was attending a panel, and the subject came up of where's all the good protest music, where the punk music, the folk music, all of the music that the people in the room had been used to didn't seem to have a contemporary with it. And somebody pointed out it's all in hip hop now. And that's not a genre of music that I am familiar with or be able to point you in a direction of. But if you want to talk about the people that are talking about oppression and racism and all of those kinds of issues now, a lot of the new stuff that's coming out is coming out in hip hop. Let me see if I can find my list. I may need to go to Spotify for this.
There's Jeanette right now. You just missed our shout out to No Enemies. Jeanette just joined us. We were talking about new and innovative ideas, and people brought up music.
Yeah, I did hear you. I was at a meeting and I got in late, and Evelyn had it on her phone, so I was coming in through Evelyn Hansen.
Okay.
But I was thinking, as Morgan was talking, I was thinking about Jamie and the Flowbots, and that's exactly what I think the transition was for them too. As they got older, they wound up in hip hop and in rap because it was the obvious move from the folk that they had done when they were younger. So, so yeah, we were at Geo and Ice the other day. I mean, that's one of the places where people have shown up the most consistently in terms of having somebody there every time. So the Young Communists were there the other day, and we were there, and some Notes of Dissent were there. So we had some brass and a little bit of singing, and we also had some indigenous. It was really quite a combo. We also had indigenous Native American dancers. We did a couple of dances.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's
So it was,
cool.
people are trying to not make it all so much of a dirge or so much of a rage or so. And the Native Americans really brought kind of a very interesting spirit. And, you kind of look at them a little bit and go, okay, I guess you've been through some stuff too, huh? And like, you're not like as enraged as we all are. And so they really brought a kind of peace to the crowd. And that was nice to see and hear.
Yeah, we got invited to the Arvada powwow, and it was amazing watching all the dancers.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
For those of you who are interested and remember, I am dropping a link to my Spotify from the original Punk Rock Resistance playlist, and it'll give you some inspiration, hopefully. And you can go and check some of the stuff out. Some of the other bands that I forgot to mention that I absolutely love are Fishbone, The Descendants, Cake, and what was the other one? Generation X is also really good, and Rancid. So if you guys have any problems with that, just let me know, but it's a good place to start. And I agree. I'd love to see good music. I'd love to see music that we can sing at demonstrations, and just all of it. That's funny, Paxton. Any questions about anything we've talked about? Music, starting your own group, finding a group. Go ahead, Jay.
Any?
Great. I have an idea, and it's not my own. I read the newspaper every day, and somebody had written an opinion piece, sort of asking about where are our representatives when it comes to protests. Our representatives should be there with us. And I wonder about organizers inviting representatives, not to give them a platform to play politics, but to show support. If there would be a way to kind of do that, I think it would help people feel safer coming out, right? And it might bring more people out, and also local celebrities too. If people who are organizing the protests, especially on October 18th, if we could get some buy-in from local celebrities, I think that also would just bring more people in. It's just a thought.
What do you like? Who do you have in mind for local celebrities?
Pam Grier would be somebody that just comes to mind. I mean, I have no connections to local celebrities or anything, but Nathaniel Rateliff and his band, they're local. I don't know if they would support this. I have no idea, but the Lumineers are local. There's just stuff like that, or sports figures, that are.
I certainly hear that, and one of the important things, along with organizing, is you don't know if somebody's willing to do it unless you ask.
Right.
But to your first question about elected officials, there has been a lot of disagreement about whether it's appropriate to have elected officials at these events. There are certain people who do not like the establishment of any sort, whether that is the parties, the institutions, the government, and the officials associated with it. And to accommodate those, the amount of, at least in Colorado, elected officials has been limited. I go back and forth. There are arguments on both sides for and against having them. I think being careful about who you invite is important, but I also think there can be a space for elected officials. The other part of it is many of these events and protests aren't the same thing as you would expect at a political rally.
Right,
So
totally.
to that extent, elected officials almost don't fit as speakers. You know, if you're talking about overthrowing tyrants or stopping ICE or any of the other things that have been going on that we've been protesting, they don't always line up completely. With that being said, I feel like there is an authority to having a political figure there standing up and being on your side and saying they're there to stand with the people. And I think giving them an opportunity to do that and do the right thing is also important. It's not something I can always control. So
Yeah. And I would, again, I'm certainly aware that it would be pretty tricky. And again, I wouldn't want it to be a political platform for anyone. But I would sure like to know that my rep, and I do know because I hear from my representative, but is in solidarity with me. And I want, and I think that they all should be in solidarity, especially with No Kings. And if they aren't, then I think I need to know that too. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
absolutely.
I totally agree. And I think there's definitely a place for that, depending on, who they are. I think we should look out for, who's already with us in fighting the Trump regime, and who hasn't done much. And I would like to know, what messages do you think, Jenny, would be useful for people to hear from an elected official, to make them feel more comfortable being out? Any ideas?
I mean, I think I'm here with you,
Okay.
and I'm in solidarity with you. And and not even, gosh, they don't even need to speak, but be
Right.
seen and be present. I think that's the kind of thing I'm thinking about. Not much more,
Yeah,
really.
what we did with the first No Kings, we agreed as a group not to have any speakers at all. That was just a format that we decided on, with the other groups that we were in the coalition with. And so when Phil Weiser came to Indivisible and asked to speak at the rally, I had the really hard job of telling Indivisible no. But the way we came to consensus about it was, well, wouldn't we look like real assholes to the people who we said we're not having any speakers if we let one person speak? But I do think he's a good example of someone who, he's filed 24 lawsuits against Trump already. So I think he is someone who is in our corner. But it is good to, make that caveat when you invite a politician to speak and say, look, this isn't a platform for your accomplishments, but this is a good time to say you're in this fight with us.
I also, from a unity perspective, feel very uncomfortable telling somebody they can't come, even if they're a politician. You know, like if we're making a place welcoming for everybody to come and express their frustration, I don't think we should be telling people, no, you can't come. And,
Oh, we did though. We invited him as a
oh,
participant.
yeah.
We
No,
said,
I
you're
mean,
welcome to come as a human being. And he did. There's a picture of him playing cornhole at somebody's booth.
but I'm just saying that we can make a space for politicians as well as anybody else. And, when it comes to who speaks and who doesn't, that needs to be done as part of the event and what's appropriate. For example, I would say a No Kings protest is more appropriate to have politicians speak than at something that's focusing on, say, immigration. So, I think a better approach would be on a case by case basis instead of, especially if you only have 4 or 5 speakers and you're going to be doing one of these every 2 to 4 weeks. I think plugging four of those spots up with state reps and state senators probably doesn't do as much as you would want it to do for those speaker spots. Go ahead, Jeanette.
I think,
Oh, Lindy,
Yeah.
are you still?
yeah,
ahead.
I put my hand back down, but I agree with Jenny. Speaking is a different thing. Speaking and who's going to speak is a different thing, but encouraging whoever, whatever elected officials are with us in protesting what this government is doing should come. Everybody's welcome. They don't need an invitation. We encourage them to come. They can come. They can march with us. They can just be like Tiffany says, human beings. But I'm surprised that more don't show up. It's sort of like we're there. Are they worried about their reputation? Are they worried about getting hurt? What are they worried about? Get out here and protest with us. Is how I feel, and we should encourage them to do it, whoever it is. There's a lot of folks that wouldn't come, but there's people that would.
Okay. Go ahead, Jeanette.
Yeah, I think initially I didn't understand why they didn't come out. I think now I understand more because I've read more about organizations that don't want them there. And so it's like they represent the man, they represent the authority, they represent the capitalists, they represent and so I did, what I'm trying to do personally is figure out who I can talk to and what groups I can go into, no matter where they are, because we've got these fault lines continuing. And some of these folks are sitting in the halls of power right now, doing everything they know to stop some of what they know is insanity. And so I gave a letter. I was going to give a letter to Hickenlooper, who lives right near me, the other day, a couple weeks ago, and I don't know him. But I went to give him the letter, and he happened to just drive in. So I called him over, and then we talked for about a half an hour. And I said, do you understand how people out here feel? Or are you in this bubble? He said, listen, I am yelled at 24/7, and that's by my friends. He said, and the complaint is the same over and over. Do something. I said, and your answer is? He said, we're proposing all kinds of bills. We're filing thousands of lawsuits. We're stopping them in their tracks. We are working tirelessly and to our exhaustion. But we lost an election. And by the way, 2 elections ago, we lost another big one. And this Supreme Court is overturning the many, many lawsuits we're bringing. He said, so if people have ideas, we want to hear them. I said, but people don't see you out there. He said, we don't have news anymore. He said, literally, unless I lit my hair on fire, no one comes to us in Washington because there's so much going on from the Trump administration every single day that when we say we are calling for a moratorium in Gaza, and I said, well, are you? He said, yes, I'm ready to sign that now. Bennett's ready to sign that now. We think we have enough votes now. But when we say we're getting bipartisan people to do it, no one's even covering it. So, to me, I also went to something this past week that kind of shook me, and it was a good shaking because there was a cab meeting in District 2 in our police. They had a barbecue and they had a meeting that was open. And so I thought, yeah, I want to ask them about immigration. And actually, the chief of police for DPD was there as well. And so I raised that question, and it was a very silent room compared to what I was used to, saying, I really am hoping that this city has a clear commitment that our police are not working directly with ICE. And that when Trump comes in with the military and tries to come in with other kinds of forces, that our local police will not be participating. So the chief of police came over after I spoke, and he was behind me. He said, that's not going to happen here. And I said, and you know this because, he said, because I've talked to the mayor, because I've talked with the governor. We are in this on the same page in this city that we do not want to be taken over by both the military, National Guard, or ICE, and that we will. I said, okay, well, those of us in the streets, those of us other places, see too cozy a connection and too many people helping out, quote unquote. So, but when we left there, I said to Evelyn, it just really underscores for me how siloed most of us are. Because we're really only talking to people who, if I make that statement, people go, of course I don't want them to do that. But when you get into a room where people go, well, they're just assisting law enforcement, aren't they? Or now, and the people weren't hostile. They just didn't quite know what to do with what I was raising. And one guy came up to my partner and said, yeah, I agree with her. We need to be telling the police not to engage. But my thinking coming away from that and hearing this again now is that I don't know which of us, who of us needs to bridge these very clear chasms. Because if people say at our protests, we don't want them there, we're going to boo them, we're going to shout them down, we're going to make them really uncomfortable and tell them that we hate all that they've let happen. And we don't want them to speak because we don't want to really hear what they have to say, even if they're telling us what they're trying to do in Washington. What are we setting ourselves up for other than just a slice of people who agree with each other? So I think, at least personally, we can try to go to some different places, even if there are groups that are disagreeing, that they come downtown or wherever. But it's a question mark for me. Who gets to veto?
So that's an excellent question. Ultimately, to be brutally honest, it's the organizers. Whoever is putting the list together of who's speaking are the ones who are saying yes or no to people.
Right.
But I agree with what you are saying with one caveat. I don't want the police department to not cooperate with ICE. When somebody comes with a mask, no identification, a bulletproof vest, pointing a gun at me to kidnap me, I want the police to come and shoot them. I mean, that's what they would do with anybody else trying to come and kidnap me. And I'm being serious about this.
Yeah.
It's not enough to just not cooperate anymore. And if you're worried about the National Guard coming in and taking over the police, if they're not on our side and resisting as much as we are, they are going to find themselves being controlled by the military of the Trump administration, unable to do anything without being overrun by the federal military. And, that's not even on people's radar screen. Nobody's even saying that. And to me, it makes no sense whatsoever. I understand people are afraid of the feds. Look at Denver East High School. They're afraid of losing something like $7 million in funding because they have two non-gendered bathrooms in the entire school. And I'm not going to live in fear like that. And I'm going to fight it with every bone of my body. That's what I was talking about last week, where this is where the Declaration of Independence came from. This kind of tyranny and this kind of abuse of power is the foundation of why our country exists and why the freedoms that are supposed to be important to us exist as the foundation of our country. And that's what we're fighting for. And if that means we have some politicians come and speak, if they're speaking on our side, I want to hear them. If they're going to come and justify why they're fast tracking nominations, why they're avoiding government shutdowns, and why they're not doing what they need to be doing to represent the people and protect them from tyranny, well, then I want to hear it. But at the same time, they can't do it if they're saying, oh, I'm talking to these people because they're my group that is going to help me get elected. Or I'm going to avoid talking to these people because talking to them may hurt my chances of getting reelected. And I'm not down for that. So I hope that helps. Sorry about my little rant. Jeanette, if you're done, I'm going to go ahead and give you a chance to speak.
Yep.
Mhm.
Oh, you're muted, Jenny.
Yeah, there I
Yeah.
go. I hope I'm on there now. So
Yep.
there's so much, right? Because you guys just said so much stuff. There's so many things I could respond to. I want to just respond back to when Jeanette had mentioned she was wondering why politicians, and again, I'm talking about it's not just politicians, but celebrities, people that know people will draw more people. I think is what I'm thinking. But I would like politicians to know that the expectation is that they're going to walk in solidarity with me. I want them to know that is what my expectation is, that and that's why I'm hoping organizers. I mean, I'm gonna, trust me, I'll be reaching out to my representative and senators and ask which No Kings protest are you going to be at, because you should be there. But I think if yeah, they need it. So when Jeanette was saying that there are groups that don't want them there, they need to know that there are groups that want to know that they are with us. That's, I guess, the most what I wanted to say.
Thanks, Jenny. Right, there was so much said there was something I wanted to say and now I can't remember it.
Did anybody
Well,
my chat about thanks fasting?
Yeah, Paxton. I was
Okay.
looking at that.
Cool. I did it 3 years ago and I did a YouTube video about it. I made a brochure about it and the health benefits of fasting. I'll send it in the chat if people are further interested in maybe fasting during the day of taking. But yeah, the past 3 years I was too distracted to do it, but I did do it successfully 2 years prior, or in the 2 years, 3 years ago.
So this brings up a really important subject to me. I like the idea of thanks fasting because it does two important things. It sends a message. It sends a very, very strong message about discontent and about what Thanksgiving is about, where it comes from, and connects it to what is going on. The other thing I really like about it is something different. It is not the same protest marching down the street and having speakers. And those are things that I have been looking for that have been hard to find. We talked before, and we have a Saturday morning civil resistance education group that is absolutely amazing, and I don't talk about nearly enough, where the tactics that were used in previous movements, whether it was in the 60s or the 80s or the 2010s, don't apply the same way. You can't sit at a lunch counter at Tesla. You can't boycott Trump's hotels and golf courses in a way that are going to have significant financial impacts to make a change. What you can do is something like a thanks fasting, where so much of something like the turkey industry relies on Thanksgiving. But if you get enough people to get on board with it, and all of a sudden they've sold 40% less turkeys this year, well, then somebody's going to notice that. And then the industry is going to put pressure on the administration. And is that the end all and be all? No. But it's a step forward. And I firmly believe in whatever makes progress is worth doing. In exactly the same way that I have argued that companies that are profitable but feel like they're not making enough profit and start firing people so that they can make more profit at the expense of firing people are immoral. Because if your company is profitable, you have enough to pay all of your expenses, including the exorbitant salaries for CEOs and everyone else, and still have money left over for shareholders. There's no reason that you need to do more than the record profits they're already making when it is at the expense of your employees, whose labor is what made your company. And it's the same concept, right? If you do enough, any little bit over zero matters, and it helps.
Two things I wanted to say. Jeanette, I know you mentioned that your the First Unitarian Church was talking to local businesses about what to do if ICE comes, and giving them, maybe signs they can put up in their windows, to help immigrants. The immigrant protection teams are making like an organized effort to do that in different communities. So if any groups are interested in getting trained on how to do that, I think we're going to have a training either in Denver or online or both, from one of the people who has a lot of experience doing it in Boulder. So email me if that's something you're interested in. I'll throw my email in the chat again. And then type that out real quick. The other thing was, Morgan, you were talking about how we need the police to be right next to us, standing up and resisting. And so that is part of why we cooperate. Maybe not cooperate is the right word, but we notify the police of any protest or march we're going to have. We get a permit. We try to make things as easy on them as possible because we want them to make things safe for people at our protests. And we're not of the fuck cops variety, or all cops are bastards, because they're not. And we need them to care about us and empathize with us when it comes down to them being told to shoot at us or not. We need to have them on our side. So that's why we work with the police, which rubs some people the wrong way, but that's why we do it.
I'd like to say a few things if I could.
Yeah, go ahead, Bill.
Yeah, this is my first time sitting in on the meeting, and I took a few notes. Steve Bannon said a while ago that what Trump and the Republicans need to do is flood the zone with so many things in the news to distract. It's hard to, the old saying, it's hard to shoot a moving target. And it's quite effective, as we all know, watching the news day to day. And it's all a diversion. And sometimes it's a diversion for obvious reasons, whether it be money or sex scandals, anything to get you off that track. So flood the zone seems to work. So if you want to fight fire with fire, as far as all of us, it's not so much going to the next protest. Individually, we can flood the zone, meaning there's lots of things we can individually do. And let's not forget, certain states are going to have governor races, like here in Virginia, which is very important. Do what you can to support your candidate. Doesn't necessarily mean you have to donate, but whatever it takes to get the word out to your friends or family to vote for the right person do that. And senators and congressmen in your district, I've written to our senator several times, and of course, I get back a somewhat of a form letter back to my topic I inquired about. But the fact is that their office gets, if they get hundreds or thousands of uh, uh, inquiries or messages to the senators and congressmen, they're going to take note um, of that. And in regards to bands and young people, that's a pretty cool idea. Young people traditionally, will go to concerts, and if there's a political message, it has legs. Meaning, young people will listen to their musical heroes. The other day, I was watching Dave Matthews, who's from our area, on a concert on YouTube, and he lambasted Trump to, I don't know, 20,000 people at a time. Same with Bruce Springsteen, and I applaud them. They have a lot of sway. So if you could set up concerts with, whether it's like hip hop, grunge, pop, whatever, as long as the songs are, inspirational to get to, and there's a political movement at the concerts, meaning flyers, stickers, to make the attendees really think about, maybe I should vote. This is getting out of hand. And also, I want to bring up one more thing. We also need to think about who's behind all these changes. I don't know if very many people are aware of Project 2025. There are, it's a cabal of powerful people who put in writing things they want done to America, and they're not the things that you and I want. Uh, Steve Miller. I detest that guy for what he stands for, but he's not in the news and nobody's protesting against it. No, I'm getting to the point where Trump is not the author. He is not orchestrating any of this. He's being told, in my opinion, what to do from all these other people behind the scenes. So I don't know how we can bring those people to the light of day for the general population to point and go, you guys, you're the guys starting all this.
Bill, welcome. I am so glad you are here. You have certainly found the right place. We did talk explicitly about the administration's attempt to flood the zone as you're talking about it. And we told people to expect a long list of horrible things to come out from the administration, particularly in the beginning of it. And to be honest, I'm a little surprised that it kind of wasn't as big and dissipated as fast as it did. I fully expected them to take this tactic and roll with it one after another, always coming up with something more horrible than the thing before. And, those are shiny metal objects that they are trying to get people to chase and react to. And we have said we need to be proactive. We can't be chasing every one of those things because it's impossible to address all of those issues at one time. And that's their plan. And then they expect you to get overwhelmed and demoralized and just give up. And we can't do that. And you are absolutely correct when you say it's a two-way street. And part of what we talked about is not only having these protests with specific issues and talking points, taking that and magnifying it across social media. If there's one thing we know, this administration responds to a sharp barb from a tweet. And if we get enough people making those noises in enough different places, we can flip that script and have so many things that they can't respond to all at the same time. That is a deliberate tactic on the right. From what you said, 2025 has long been what the oligarchs, billionaires, and Republicans have wanted and have been talking about. None of it is surprising. And we cannot let them do that. But, you know, to get to the point that they are on the defense takes more coordination and more work than is easily put together. And that is part of why we started this group, is to get all of the different parts of the movement, the left, whatever you want to call it, speaking in the same voice and doing the same things. And even if you don't agree on everything, you know, having politicians speaking at the protests is a perfect example. That doesn't mean that it wouldn't be beneficial for everybody to come out to them. And it doesn't mean that you can't have compromise where maybe at this event, we only have elected officials, and at other events, we don't have any elected officials. And teaching people how to do all of these things is a large part of what our group does and why we do it. And that's where Tiffany and I came to this. And you are 100% absolutely right about that.
Thank you.
One more thing I would like before everybody leaves, and this can be something you put in the chat. This can be something you think about and email to action@solidaritywarriors.org, or something that you bring to the next meeting. We are looking for actions, activities, things that we can do beyond a protest march, speeches, the things that we have been doing that could be more effective. So if you have any ideas, if there's anything that you would like to see, I can't promise that we'll do all of them and make all of them happen, but we can take inspiration from that and work off of it. So if there's anything that you would like to see or do, let us know. Put it in the chat, send an email, bring it to the meeting next week, and we'll be happy to talk about it for you.